So Exmoor Wildwatch has been a really exciting piece of work based here on Exmoor. It's all about getting the public engaged in Exmoor's amazing wildlife, but also helping us to work with them to find out more about some key species that we have here in the national park. I guess this short piece is a reflection on what's worked and what hasn't gone so well, and how we might do things differently in the future. I guess the first key thing about it is that I think we've all been blown away by how successful it's been in terms of the participation with the public in the number of species records that we've got in, which has literally been hundreds now. First step I think was really key was identifying the species that we wanted to work with. We picked species that we did genuinely, working with the ecologists, want to know more about on Exmoor. These are probably species of change, shall we say. So, for example, we've taken species such as the cuckoo, where we know numbers are plummeting nationally, but also species such as red kite, where we know numbers are going up. So we were trying to choose species that we wanted to know more about, where there was change, but also we felt the public could easily identify with. Some of the other things we've thought about were the spread across the year. So we've got wax-caps fungi, and also we've taken some lichen as well. So we've got something at the beginning of the year. So we were trying to think of a range of species that were spread across the year. I guess the next step was, once we'd established those 10, 12 key species, was then thinking about how we were going to get the public to record those. So working with the team at the National Park, we put together a simplified form, basically highlighting where people had seen it, what they'd seen, when they'd seen it, and worked closely with the recording officers, the biodiversity recording officers, so that we were capturing information that they could use. Once we'd worked out the form and got everything lined up with the records officers, we were then ready to kick on with the PR. We've produced a wall planner, or a species ID guide, probably a better way of putting it, which I always say is ideal for going on the classroom wall, or perhaps going on the fridge door. So we actually printed 10,000 of these, so they've literally gone all right across the national park. We've also done lots of tweets, we've had ID information on the website, and then we've also really focused on it at our events. So for example, we have our family fun days, our big adventure days, where we've worked with local societies focusing on this key species. We've also worked with the Clowns Play Bus, which is a bus which goes around lots of the isolated rural communities, and we've commissioned them to really have a focus on wildlife activities and Wildwatch this year.
Yeah, hi, I'm Emma Rowe, and I've been working for Clowns as a play worker for the last 3.5 years. Clowns is a children's charity, which means it stands for creating learning opportunities in Western Somerset. So Wildwatch is really exciting. We've got together a bit of a package. All the children who come on are preschool age, so we've had to take the ideas of the animals and the insects and things, and to their simplest sort of capacity of what they are and where they would find them and how they can look after the animals and insects and birds around them. We have got a nature make that creating today, which is a bird feeder, and they're making that with scrap store and natural materials. Then at snack time they've got a video to watch, which is linking up a lot of these animals and insects together. And then they'll be going home with the thing they've made and information on all those things that they've learned through the day. There's multiple ways that it's important. We're important in its simplest sense as a contact for a parent and a child in a rural community where they might not be meeting many other children or parents. We want to introduce them to things, whether it's stories, making things, national park, things that are going on in their community, linking them together to then move on to other things within their environment, hopefully in their community. Although we're working with children, it's really important that we speak to the parents as well. So everything is aimed at the children, but with a link or a signpost to where the parents can get more information, where they can go to places in the national park to maybe find these animals and birds. It's really important that although the children understand, that the parents even more so, because they're the ones that can actually do something about the decline of these animals and insects and things.
So I'm Ali Hawkins and I'm the Wildlife Conservation Officer with Exmoor National Park Authority. So the Exmoor Wildwatch survey has been a brilliant opportunity for people to get involved with recording wildlife on Exmoor. It's been really successful. We're now in the second year, and it's enabled us to find out a lot more about some of the really special species that we've got here on Exmoor that we didn't really know that much about. So all the species we've chosen for the survey have been carefully selected because we want to know more about them. They're priority species for us, and some of them we didn't really know much about at all. So, for example, brown hare, we had very few records of brown hare at all. We didn't really know whereabouts they occurred on Exmoor or in what sort of numbers. And as a result of the survey, we've now got a really good idea where they are. We've had lots of records coming in, so it's given us a much better kind of idea of how many we might have on Exmoor. Cuckoo has been another brilliant one. We've had lots of people engaging with, it's obviously a very charismatic bird. We've had lots of records coming in. We've had, I think, over 130 records last year. It's a really interesting species. Obviously, it overwinters in Africa, so it gives us a lot of information about when it's kind of arriving back on Exmoor. And it's really increased our knowledge of this really important moorland bird. Exmoor is probably really important for cuckoos nationally, so that's really helped us to learn a lot about cuckoo. So for this year, we've added some extra species in, and interesting species like the string of sausages lichen, which is this fantastic lichen that you find kind of literally hanging off hawthorn trees on the moorland, and you also find it down in the woodlands as well on some of the big old oak trees. It's a really distinctive lichen, so it's a really great one for people to look out for. We've also included the hedgehog this year because we really don't know much about hedgehogs on Exmoor. Again, it's a priority species, and nationally hedgehogs have declined massively, and we really don't know what they're doing on Exmoor. So this year we're really encouraging people to send us in records for hedgehog. The data is going to be really useful because it's going to tell us a lot more about how these species are doing on Exmoor, and we'll be able to share this data with all of the partner organisations that we work really closely with, so people like the RSPB with the cuckoo. We're also asking for red kite records and kestrel records this year because we know kestrels have declined massively, so we're wanting to find out more about how they're doing on Exmoor, and we're really encouraged to see that more red kites seem to be coming to Exmoor, and maybe they'll be breeding here at some point. So the public are really helping us to fill in some really vital information.
Hello, my name's Patrick Watts-Mabbott. I'm the Volunteer and Outreach Officer for Exmoor National Park Authority. Well, as part of the Wildwatch project, we've been working very closely with our ecologists and various other members of staff to try and identify which species we need to know more about on Exmoor. So some of those are very rare, some of them much more common, but we just don't know enough about them. And then my role has been partly working along those lines and also working to get more volunteers, more people aware of what we're trying to find out about, and getting them out there really looking for these species and helping us to find out more about them. It's been really well. We've had volunteers out last year looking for all sorts of different species. We've been running training days to help people learn more about the species that we want to know more about. We've had, another half dozen or more training days this year already, with another probably dozen still to come. The bookings are going really well. There's been a lot of interest in those, and we've already had our first few sightings of species we want to know more about in this year already. I guess the hardest part we've been doing is it would be really nice to be able to get more of the maps of the sightings up online, so it's a bit of a more instant feedback, a slightly more automated mapping process. would be nice. At the moment, our poor old JIS officer has to almost manually upload all of the dots onto the website rather than them appearing automatically. We might have a technical fix for that one day. It's been worked on. I'd really like to see us looking for glowworms at some point in one of the future, because we know there are 2 or 3 sites we know of on Exmoor. And the really hard thing to survey for glowworms is that you have to be there late at night around Midsummer's Eve, out looking in the right places for them, and that's just a big ask for only one person to go and do. So to get the message out there that we want people to go and look for them and let their sightings come back to us, I think that would be really useful.
So what works well? So I think it has been, from our perspective, a really good success. It's certainly caught people's imagination, whether it's been the press or whether it's been wildlife societies or school groups or community groups or members of the public. Certainly caught people's imagination, and it's really brought them into the national park family a bit more. It's been a really good introduction step to many of the other opportunities that are here in Exmoor National Park. We've also learnt loads. We knew very little about the hare on Exmoor, but we now know a lot more than we did. We hardly had any records, and now we've got them coming out of our ears. So we certainly know a lot more about Exmoor's amazing wildlife, particularly these key species that we didn't know. Other things that have gone well were, I think some of the logistics have worked well. The recording forms, the liaison with the record offices, the information on the website, that's all worked really well. So I think that's all been really positive. Things that have gone perhaps less well, we certainly learned stuff in the first year, which is very much what the project is about. One of the things that we learned, I think, is that you can never have enough images. So we had some key images for the ID guides, but in terms of if you're tweeting or you're doing press releases, you do need a lot of images, and that takes time to get those images, good quality images, and also ones which you have the permission to use. Secondly, something else we looked at after the first year was the mapping of the data. We generally found that people could very easily map the information, which was great, but we were finding it was taking an awful lot of time to do the analysis afterwards. So we've changed to using latitude, longitude, which again is easy for people to use, but also is far more straightforward for us to do the analysis of. And I guess another thing, third thing is probably was the species. We certainly chose some species in the first year that we were desperate to know stuff about, but perhaps weren't quite iconic, easily identifiable enough. So we certainly struggled with some butterfly species. In the first year we had Heath butterflies. That didn't work as well as we hoped. We had some really good records, but not as many as we hoped. And I also think such as sundew. So just think about the choice of the species. I guess things that we might do differently in the future. I certainly think less is more. Don't feel that you have to do all your species in one go. We had 10 species the first year, 12 the second year. I think don't feel, like I say, you have to do everything all at once. Have some up your sleeve, because unfortunately, for better or for worse, the years go through really quickly. So have some up your sleeve, and also just be aware that this type of citizen science work, it can be done for minimum effort, but there's a huge amount of value in putting a good slab of time into it. And I think it's a brilliant, we have found it's a brilliant way of getting volunteers involved, particularly in the backroom stuff. And I think, in the future, we probably get more people involved, in that. And a lot of the work can be done in the quieter times of the year. So, for example, tweets, PR, that can be done in the winter months, and then have that all ready to go for when things really hot up and the year cracks on. I think so. In summary, I think our experience has been, that of the partners, is that it's been really successful. It's certainly got people engaged. It's certainly got people engaged not only in the species but in the wider work of the national park and those working here. And also, we have learned a lot about species that we wouldn't have otherwise known about.